We are Greg and Leah, the host of Evolve, the #1 podcast about relationships, and not just the tender or toxic romantic ones, but all kinds of relationships with many people, places, and paths.
We aren't here because we know or understand it all, simply because we are working to evolve and asking others to join the evolution.
So join us in this next episode of Evolve!
And welcome back to another episode of Evolve with
Greg
and Leah. Where we left off on the 19th episode, talking about sex, was leaving you with the question.
So this is our 20th episode?
This is our 20th episode. Woo! Where's the little pop fireworks, sparklers?
You have to have some kind of pop noise.
Yeah, 20th episode. I can't believe that you've actually done this with me for so long. Like I said in another episode prior, I didn't even think when I brought this to you, you would even say yes. So thank you for doing this with me so far.
I'm having fun.
He's having fun. It really is helping us think through and evolve through our own areas and grow ourselves and expand. So in the last episode, like I was starting to say, we left off with leaving the public with the question, what mindsets have you grown into that are good, bad, ugly, unserving, serving, whatnot around sex and your sexuality. So we are going to pick up here. We shared in the 19th episode about just our history, some things that happened to us. So now we're going to pick up with
So check that video out last week if you want to.
Well,
so
they're not videos. They're really just audios.
Audio.
Maybe
yes.
one day we'll actually do what normal people do and have a video podcast on here.
I don't know.
We'll see. Yeah, when you get comfortable one day and confident. Until then, so let's pick up where we left off of sex and our marriage. Do you want to go first?
So we talked about the biblical, or looking for the biblical prospect of sex, and I think actually about 2 weeks, I don't know, maybe a month, and you were asking somebody for advice on something, and then
I don't know, on sex.
Yeah, and they were telling us that
I don't remember.
It doesn't have to be intercourse all the time and all this stuff. That it was other ways that you could.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Maybe you remember that. I don't remember.
It was your obligation, and we didn't. Well, we went into you said about the porn and the internet, and that was what you went actually for guidance on.
Oh, for like counseling. So let me just insert in here. If this is the first episode you've ever tuned into, when we are talking about like biblical things or our religious upbringing, you could go back into the other episodes, especially in like episode 1 or 2, I believe it was, where we kind of said why, who we are, why we're here, why we're doing this podcast, but also what our background was. We have since deconstructed a lot of those beliefs. And there are some pieces of that wall, I'll use that analogy, that we've still maintained. Other parts we've completely tossed aside. So when we do bring up something, so I just wanted to say, because you mentioned like the biblical thing, and you're not on a Christian podcast.
No.
Be aware. This is not a religious or, I will say it's sometimes spiritual in the sense of what we're going to talk about, dive in, go into, but just wanted to throw that out there because I'm not going to assume that, you've been following since the beginning.
Right.
Maybe you just tuned into this one because it has the word sex in the title. So go back into some of the old ones, find out a little bit about who we are, how we met, what our religious beliefs were at the time, and you can also see how we've evolved forward and what's changed in us. But yes, our background came from a Judeo-Christian life and home. We brought those beliefs into a marriage very strongly, and we mentioned in the previous episode in 19 of how some of those beliefs were, no external release or satisfaction. So no self-gratification, no going anywhere. Your spouse is your only outlet.
Yeah. And
this created a lot of pressure for me and a lot of frustration for you. Would that be the best way to say that?
Yes.
And how we chose to deal with it was really, I didn't seek counsel, quote unquote, until like a year or something
was it?
into
I thought
the
it was-
relationship. It was not within weeks.
No. Okay.
No. And I do know that like the first like couple months of being married, now that I was allowed to have full on sexual relationship with someone, you have the, you explain it as, wow, you were just a wild tiger because all that, decades of, sexual pent up energy is now having a place to come out, to the point that you were 34. I was 20 when we married. So that's our age gap. So I had, a lot more sexual energy. You were probably in your prime as well, or like,
I was doing
where would
good.
you say? But you felt at one point like, you couldn't keep up. Like, I wanted more.
Right.
But what we've talked about since then
was
was
totally
I was trying to meet an expectation of yours.
Right.
I didn't care about that much sex. I didn't need that much sex. And something, I think maybe we've been brought it up in other episodes, is how much sex male and females really need. Once you learn about oxytocin and like what gets released during sex and dopamine, and like women tend to, I won't generalize it as all women, but like once they have an orgasm or reach a climax and have that oxytocin / dopamine release, like it lasts for a while. Whereas men, you have it and then you want it again right away.
Almost insatiable, yeah.
And so there was a very different appetite that we came once married into the bedroom with. And because of your restrictions, I'll say, because you share in the first the episode 19 of, you came from a completely open field of freedom. You could run anywhere sexually and do anything. Coming into this marriage, now you were in this small little restraint space.
Chosen, yeah.
Yes. But did you even realize what that would look like for you sexually, and what that would feel like for you being frustrated? And I can say I didn't know what it would be like feeling the pressure of constant performance.
Right.
We talked about before, every 2 to 3 days. Like,
right.
That's what church told us. We have to keep our husbands, or else they would be led astray and your marriage would crumble.
Right.
So
sex was the glue that kept the marriage together.
Correct. And I wouldn't necessarily deny that as like, oh, that's not true. Maybe we could talk that out a little bit more. I mean, I do think it's important. What I don't appreciate now, looking back, is how all of that was put on my plate. Pretty much.
And there was a time where
What?
Well, remember we went.
You had a thought, but didn't actually say that out loud.
We went somewhere to talk to somebody and about a topic on this, and we walked out, and like, it was all your fault, and you were to blame, and I was like, that is bullshit.
And I did appreciate when you came out of there, because and we were under a ministry, I'll say, that was very manipulative and very just not good. But we didn't see it at the time. So once we were sitting in this counseling session, sharing some of our struggles in the bedroom and sex and finding out, like, sharing that, you were looking at porn, and like you had, once the computer came into our home, like we were sharing this with the counselors. I'll quote unquote call them counselors. I wouldn't really say that's their that's not a good word for them, but that's what we were using them for at the moment. And yes, they kind of were like, oh, but porn is bad. You know that. But like you said, the majority of that session was, well, how are you in the bedroom, dear girl? Like, maybe you need to relax and be more liberated and more this. And I don't know if they knew my whole background that I've shared. I shared a lot of that in episode 19, the previous episode here, of sexual abuse and stuff. I don't know if they knew a lot about that. So someone trying to counsel someone to just open up when someone's had a ton of sexual trauma, they're not going to get anywhere in that. Like, that you're not going to reach the person. Like, it's, I shared in the other, I keep saying this, but like in the first episode that we shared about sex was like, I didn't have a voice. So like, it'd be like saying to someone, just say what you need.
Right.
I don't know how to use my voice. I don't even have a voice. It was like in the Little Mermaid story where Ursula takes her voice as payment. That's essentially what happens in my point of view, to sexually abused people. Like, your voice is completely gone. So in that session, I did appreciate when you did come out and you were like, we're never going back to them again. Like, I don't appreciate how they put that on their plate. It wasn't all your fault. And like, I think what's been our saving grace a lot of times is being able to communicate about this outside of the bedroom.
Yeah.
We have had some massive fights in the bedroom in those early years. And for probably, like, I would say maybe even the first 15 of our 25 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there just was not the circle of understanding. There was just, I mean, we were coming constantly at it from a religious mindset of how performance should be. And you were frustrated and I was pressured. So there was no understanding of what else can we talk about here. It was, you need to perform because I'm sexually needing you. And how about you just open your legs and just can you just get in the mood?
Right,
like a lot of those kind of conversations.
Or let me try to get you into the mood.
And I remember we've had many arguments in the bedroom in that heated moment. And you would just be like, my God, just let me try and stop denying me this space. But it was just, like I said a second ago, when there is that, okay, we had sex 2 days ago, I'm good for a little while. Even though you might have known that or we might have talked about that at some point, it didn't still click as, oh, if you're good, then I'm good. Because, yeah, you have a different sex drive than me.
I think it was when both of us came to the realization, and that's just been very recently, that your sex and your sex is not my responsibility and my sex is not your responsibility. That when I think that was like, because in the way of upbringing, it's your responsibility to take care of me.
Right.
And
right.
My responsibility to take care of you. Well, of course, I want to, guys want to take care of, and this is in our relationship. I can't speak of anybody else.
Yeah.
And so you're having pressure and I'm having, and actually, before we go any further with this, the sexual energy that I have, and we've already discussed, and energy alone that I have is like... Just
your actual energy. You have ADHD
crazy.
On top of just being a man who's driven.
So yeah.
A lot of energy here.
And having, at the time, thinking, wow, you were younger, you had an expectation that you were trying to fulfill with me, so I'm thinking, wow,
I have it set for life.
I have it, yeah. And it was a long period of time that it was that way, and I never even had a clue, because I was so caught up in, I thought everything was going great. And it does.
I would say I didn't actually open up to you until recent, within the last 2 years maybe, of just saying I haven't actually enjoyed our sex life completely always. And you're like, what? Okay, we've had some issues, or we've talked, or we've fought, or we've been not on the same page, but what do you mean a lot of it was just you performing,
right?
You fulfilling what you thought you had to do. I felt like you were a little shocked or surprised and almost hurt at hearing that.
That got into an argument too. Because lack of understanding, and until I realized, because I'm thinking I'm not allowed to have any release without you or whatever. So I'm always,
that was still a long held mindset for you. Until not too long ago, honestly.
And actually now that we've both come to this, or back then, and started coming to this understanding, I believe our sex has never been better. In fact, that's why we're having this conversation, because of what we're going to start.
Is it better because of how often it is?
Oh, we don't have sex hardly.
I was just going to say, I think that needs to be clarified. We don't have better sex because it's more regular sex. It's not.
But it's for lack of better words, it is both wanted for this at the same time. Mm-hmm. It's not, there's no performance, and we've actually started to have conversations and giggled and had a whole nother, it wasn't like I said, my programming was the 80s porn. That's how you. That's
Right.
how.
This is
that's,
the steps,
that's
and
how
this
you
is how it progresses.
How you have sex, and you don't.
There's no awkwardness or
there's-
nothing that's supposed to
it
happen.
It
It's
flows.
supposed to just
Everything flows together and smoothly, and there's the climax, and
the end. Go to bed.
and
Well, and that was something that we just even were sharing somewhere recently. I forget where it was, but something that you said in one of the fights that, because I loved being in our bed. Like, I love snuggling, I love watching TV, I love reading, I love being comfortable. And it's funny, I was just saying this to someone the other day, and I'm like, it's funny how much I love being in bed, even though bed is where I've always been abused. Like, I shouldn't. I should not actually correlate those as I love being in the bed. But I don't know, bed is comforting to me. And one of our fights at one of the heated moments years ago, you're like, because I'm like, just come into bed. And you're like, the bed is for sex or for sleeping, nothing else. And I mean, like, you stormed out and you were super mad. And I was like, wow, man. So I know as this has been quite a difficult dance at times to be on the same page and to understand one another. Because as patient, you had shared in episode 19, the previous episode that we began talking about sex and this topic, that knowing my abuse, because you knew that prior to us getting together, like, you had this, like, I'm going to be her protector. You were very, very, and have still often been very patient in the bedroom, knowing a lot of this. But there's a line to everyone's patience.
I've also been very impatient.
And very impatient at times. Like, you know what, I'm done. I don't want to hear any more of this. Like, you have had times where you've been like, okay, how come you're still... Actually, you told me one time, like, I'm not your abuser, so stop, like, treating me as if I'm them.
Right.
And it's not a wrong statement for you to say that. Probably how you said it was probably wrong. But it's a true statement. It is a true statement. But I can speak from the side of the, abused victim part is... It doesn't matter. If something triggers a touch, a taste, a smell, something sets you right back to that moment, you are the same. Like, your brain has like we talked about in other episodes, I believe, where, like, your brain, when you're having a feeling or emotion that's attached to a memory,
right,
it has no idea of the time. It's exactly back in that time experiencing that thing. So it does require a mindset shift. Is that the best way to say it?
Yes.
And we have had to do that. The book rec I gave in the previous episode was Hot and Unbothered, a complete breakdown of what's expected of sex and what people's mindsets are and how to break some of those and how to just have fun sexually with each other. And sometimes that is, because I think, like, in the beginning, like you said, how the porn progression is this happens, then this happens, then this happens, and then that happens. But, like, in the book that she shares in the Hot and Unbothered, it is like, okay, sometimes, something's uncomfortable, rearrange. If you're too hot and sweaty, go cool down, take a break. You're getting hungry in the middle, go stop and get a snack. And these are not seen on TV, really, right, or in media or movies. It's
sex can't. Why can't? And this is where I've started having fun with is. Why not enjoy the ride to the climax?
I feel like you've always been good at that, though.
I'm not talking about. Well, yes, that's true. You. There's a line that divides sex and then not sex, for you. And I'm saying, I've been. Let's say, today I've had my arm around you. I've tickled you. We've walked the mall or Costco. We went to Costco. We walked around there. And giggled and laughed and played.
Right.
That's my foreplay. And if it could take days before the fruit is ready to be picked.
It's true.
And it's so fun.
Where you used to be impatient about that, now you have a whole different mindset about that. So
I'm trying to have a different mindset.
Yes. And that's where, like, now let's move forward. I mean, yes, we have had a lot of arguments and a lot of not being on the same page in the bedroom. I think, like I said, we have survived for many different reasons. It's not just, but communication top. I mean, for sure. Yes. We've shared this in other episodes, like how important communication is. Even if it is heated and you can cool down and then come back to that conversation when you're both calm.
Yeah.
Get the resolution at some point, somehow, together. We've always been able to do that. And that's the only reason we're still together, I feel like. And maybe just the fact that energetically, spiritually, we were destined to be together. If you want to believe in soulmates, then, there's that. But what would you say has been the biggest mindset shift in all this for you? Sex and sexuality in general. Just how have you gone out of that, like, oh, this is the sphere and it can only be like this?
Well, I think first off, just opening your mind up to other when you find out that the religious standpoint or the programming that you had on other things don't line up, and now all of a sudden you ask yourself, this is not working either. And this idea that your body is my body and my body is your body is
And
bullshit.
like we have possession of the other parties, and I can
right.
Yours is mine, and to do with what I wilt.
That's bullshit. And for someone even to make any kind of rules, and I think I'm not completing a sentence, but one of the things that I think the other thing that's kept us together, we figured out our own path.
Yeah, counseling has been
Anybody
shitty
we've
for
gone
us.
to ask
Oh
for
my
advice,
God.
they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And
we always walk away from counseling like, never mind, I'll never go back to that.
It's not worth it. In fact, I think we've just figured it out.
But again, that's required communication through this whole thing.
It's required commitment. It's required communication, and like I said before, you're the first person that I actually, honestly cared for,
and wanted to work through no matter what.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, I would say, like, this is not really on the subject of sex, but on the subject of relationships and long-term partnerships and quote-unquote marriage, whatever you want to call it. For us, it's been marriage, but, like, is the fact that, like, I don't know, divorce was never an option for me.
No.
Or for you.
No. Not.
So we kind of had no choice in our mindset to work this out, talk this out, come back to this topic when we can. And going back to the topic of sex and sexuality and how we're evolving at this point, the book was the first kind of turning point for me of like, oh my gosh, this can be different.
Yeah.
I do deserve a voice here. I do deserve space.
And you swung to the other end of the pendulum for a spell.
Yeah, it probably was. I mean, to the point where, like, everyone's like, are you probably asexual if you don't even like sex? But it wasn't that I didn't like sex. I really have enjoyed and do enjoy good sex and good connection. It's just how often that I felt I needed it. And I also want to say, like, I feel like age is playing a really, like, my body is changing so many different ways and so many things. I'm 45. I was just telling you the other day, I think I've had my first hot flashes recently of like, oh, I've been waiting for these because I've been so freaking cold most of my life. So I think part of it is also just normal transitions of what our bodies are doing. Do you want to share any of the other parts that you've struggled with in your body sexually, or no?
I'm just getting older, that's all, and everybody knows that. What happens to men when they get older.
And that was a struggle, though, for like a year or two, just in your mind. Like, we were in the bedroom was just so stressful. Even when both parties were like, yeah, let's go, there would just be either I was going through just some hormonal stuff, or you were going through, like, you know, I don't know, I can't seem to get up there. So there was also a season of really difficult stuff in that. Yeah. With our bodies not seeming to do what we wanted it to do at times. So I will also say there's just seasons of a relationship sexually that just ebbs and flows. There's really hot and steamy, and there's really like cold and placid, frigid. I don't know what's the right word there, but in the last several years of, like I said, me reading this book, and then other resources have come into my life, and just working on my own healing. And a lot of it is required healing from our past, you know, washing away the mindsets you've had, washing away the mindsets that I've had, working through some of the trauma and healing through that on all of our ends. But I would say that being able in the last couple like years here to really communicate all the time, here's where I am, here's how I'm feeling, has made a better connection for us, I feel like.
Well, there was a lot of things that you thought were to be kept secret, and when we started doing, just communicating more, or even actually because of some of the Torah laws we would do, then I understood a cycle and things like that. So it was all kinds of new communication.
And that's why I don't want to say I regret the course we have taken spiritually speaking. Because
I wish I would have speeded through it, but
yeah, maybe it could have gone a little faster, and we could have been a little less harsh and judgmental of where we were in our belief system and how judgmental we were towards other people that didn't match or click with that belief system with us. But I will say, like, you just mentioned, like, when we transitioned from just typical Christians into Messianic Judaism, and we started following more of the Mosaic Old Testament laws at that time. And, like, I appreciated having that space where
right.
I actually, there was even a season of time where you would actually have a separate bedroom than me.
Yeah.
And, like, that was kind of nice. Like, that kind of opened up the space for both of us to be like, hey, let's spread out sex a little bit. Let's spread out this need, and let's give that space, because you having my 1 week of, my own space built your excitement to come back into reconnecting and stuff, and it gave me the space. So that was kind of a good beginning. And then shortly after that, I read the other book, and then shortly after that we started looking at other alternative, really, it's just amazing how things have slowly evolved over 25 years for us, spiritually, emotionally, physically. We've gone through so many things, and what's the next episode we will bring up is what we're evolving and looking into now about sex being more than just a, hey, let's connect, move on, and let's go.
Bam, thank you.
Yeah. So do you want to preview any of that? Like, we can only share a little bit because we haven't really dove into all that yet. That's kind of coming up on that will be like a part 3 maybe.
So in some of the I could say the avenue that I've came to this,
sure.
In some of the, I want to say, spiritual investigations that I was doing I've been doing in the past and continue to do. I mean, we talk to Buddhist people that believe in Buddhism. We talk to people who are atheists.
Agnostic. Like, yeah. I mean,
so
what's it when you believe in multiple gods? I forget.
Polytheism. Yeah.
There we are. We got there.
There was law of attraction. There is looked into some
like The Secret and those kind of books and things like that. Yeah.
Looked at some candle magic, some magic stuff, some witchcraft kind of things, and all said and done, everybody's saying about the same thing.
Yeah.
Where was I going with that?
I'm not sure.
Oh crap!
Uh-oh.
Help me out.
You were talking about how you came to this. Okay, there we are.
There we go. So one of the podcasts that I was listening to, I forget what the guy's name was, some kind of alchemist.
Okay.
And he talked about the power of an orgasm and the creative power of an orgasm. And matter of fact,
this was a podcast?
This was a podcast.
Okay.
I have to look up the guy's name. I don't remember. It's a while back, but he was saying that, when two people come together and have sex, that when they have an orgasm together, there is a power of creation, and if you put an intention to it, you can actually create that into the universe, and it would bring that to you. And he actually said, masturbate to whatever it is you want, and I'm like, you're freaking nuts. That was a long back.
Never thought of that. Yeah.
And so, and I didn't think nothing of that until I decided to try that. And there was some, we've done vision boards, and we've
got a vision book now.
We have a vision book, and actually, it was just a joke, I think, and that was, I would say, about before we sold the company and everything. It was like, and that's when, not too long after that, we're on the road living the dream. So, jack off to your dream. No, so I thought it was crazy, but look now.
Did you just say jack off to your dream?
Jack off to your dream.
Oh my God. Okay. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but yeah, so what you are now what the next part of this will be, and we're still exploring this. This is still really new for us. Like I said,
I didn't know there was a name to it or anything.
It's Tantra, is the name Tantra Sex and Tantra Sexuality.
But it's more than just that.
And what I have been learning, and I'm going to give a bunch of recs here of books as well as some clips / podcasts / people who know. Yeah, no, that's okay, because the next part will be like, oh, hey, we've learned how to do this and we've incorporated it. Here's what's happened. This is still very new for us. This is what we're evolving into currently.
Possibly, yeah.
And researching, trying to understand, just really studying it to embrace it if it's something that resonates for us. And what I am learning from this so far, from researching Tantra sexuality, is how sex was a huge part of connecting to partners as well as divinity, like divine creation. It was a part of ceremonies, and I know people might think like, oh yeah, that's what orgies were, and that's not what actual Tantra is. So I will say, like, there is some really great people who know and understand and have studied this back, but prior to the Inquisition and the whole religion taking over the world and saying, nope, we're putting all these boundaries, no one gets to do this.
Well, I don't know if this is true, but the whole definition of the word fuck is fornication under consent of the king, or king's consent, or something like that.
Oh, I don't know. I've heard you say that before.
I don't know if that's the case, but
again, that's putting a boundary on like who can have sex with where and how it was. Something happened in like a couple thousand years ago that everything about sexual freedoms and knowing and understanding the power of, like you just said, the power of creation in sex and sexuality got completely like canned and told like, no, this is bad. So you've used the statement many times before of like, who told you were naked, of like, who told you, who programmed you, looking back to like, who programmed you, is it serving you? That's the same thing we're talking about here. But Tantra has had for a long time. I think it's maybe coming back into certain circles and people's understanding, but it was very much like all of it was pushed outside and religion was pushed in and made these really tight boundaries. And now we no longer had used it to even connect to creation and creator and all the power and the energy. I don't know if there's anything more powerful in human life than the power of an orgasm. Like that explosion. I heard one of the people I'm going to recommend shortly here is like, oh, imagine the Big Bang, and that is what sex is as well. Realize that energy is creation.
Right.
And so, like I said, there's a lot that we have yet to explore, that we have yet to understand. So I'm not going to say like, oh, that's our stamp, that's what we're doing. Because we don't know yet. This is where we are working to research and evolve forward and improve our sex and sexuality in ourselves and in our relationship.
Right.
So with that said, I am going to give a couple recs. If you want to pull up, I don't know if you know what one you were talking about as a recommendation.
If I can find it.
While he is looking at that, I am going to go to, I'm in my Goodreads account here so that I can actually share the real recommendations and the real titles and real authors. The book I have shared already about, as well as in the last episode I've shared with it here, is The Hot and Unbothered, and it's called How to Think About, Talk About, and Have the Sex You Really Want. That is by Yana Talon Hicks. I think I said that totally wrong in the other episode, so I will make sure in all the details that I have all of that correct. But Hot and Unbothered, How to Think About, Talk About, and Have the Sex You Really Want was mind-blowing of a book of like, wow, this is an awesome book. I do feel like they should even have it in high schools, which the very right-winged would be like absolutely against, but we have got to have a better mindset around sex and sexuality for sure. I'm also going to throw out another book, and this one is actually a fiction book, but it was so informative, and this is a YA, a young adult book that I had read back, oh my goodness, maybe 2 years ago now. And it's called On the Subject of Unmentionable Things by Julia Walton. And it is just a great fictional story about a young teen girl who rewrites sex education, one viral post at a time. So she's kind of like anonymously writing, a post that the school ends up seeing, and just, she's originally a rule follower, but, starts breaking down this sex education that's being taught to teens. And it is really great. It is a fiction, but it's got some really great points. Those are my 2 book recs, and I will go into, let's see, my YouTube history here, and I will find what I've been listening to.
I can't find it.
Do you remember like a title if you did a search or something?
I did the Law of Attraction Alchemy, but that's
okay. Well, if you can find it,
I found this one guy I think might be it,
but
I don't know. I have to play it, hear his voice.
So let me get into my history here. Where is my history? Let me go into watch later.
No, this is.
So one of the people who did an amazing job, and I even asked you, Gregory, to listen to it, and I think you're partway through it, is...
This is him.
5 minutes.
Is that him?
Yep.
You found it? Okay, so you don't have to play it on here, but tell me who is it and what's the title of is it a video or is it a podcast?
Oh, I don't know. I just know the guy found his voice. I don't even. It's a video that I found, but his looks like his Law of Attraction Solutions is his.
Okay. That's what's his name? Or what's the channel that someone could find and they could search?
Law of Attraction Solutions. Robert Link.
Miracle
Mentor and Alchemy Success Coach.
So that is on YouTube, Spotify. Where are you?
Looks like I'm on YouTube.
YouTube. Okay. So say it again.
So his name is Robert Link, and I just, like I said, I followed him a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
He may be crazy now. I don't know. He may be crazy then. But his name's Robert Link, Miracle Mentor and Alchemy Success Coach.
Interesting. Another coach like me. Okay, so another person who I've also passed this on to you so that you could look at it as well, Gregory, and you've started it, listening to it as well, is Christina Lopes on YouTube. Oh my goodness. I actually subscribed to her channel because it was so good. And she's the one who really breaks it down of the history, what are some of the myths, and disprove some of the myths around what people have thought it was. She goes into just, even how-tos, like some things to incorporate and begin working with Tantra. I loved listening to her too because she was sexually abused as a 3 or 4 year old as well. So she can come from my perspective and also work through the healing. There's a healing video she has as well. But Christina Lopes on YouTube, as well as I believe she's on Instagram. But the video that I was really enjoying was the secrets of sacred sexuality and how to practice it. And just such a great video, so informative. Those are our recs for today. And that's it for now. I mean, explore on your own. I don't want to say, you have to do it this way and you need to think that way. Just evaluate, like we said in the previous episode, evaluate all the mindsets around everything. That's what Evolve is about. This whole podcast is about seeing what is serving you. And if it's not, work on changing that and evolving out of that into something that better serves you. Because as you are a whole, healthier person, guess what? Everybody around you is going to be. You're just going to make huge impacts in the world around you. So that is our, story for now. Part 3. I don't know how long it will be away from now, but
someday
I hope to come back and be like, wow. Well, Christina Lopes was even sharing, once you have sacred sex, you will never go back to regular sex. There's nothing wrong with regular sex, but she's like, once you have sacred sex and you understand the power that's in it, wow, you'll never go backwards. So I'm hoping that we'll have a follow-up like that. And Greg's smiling ear to ear at this point. We're going to have amazing sex and be so connected and so creative and manifest whatever we want in the world. Maybe. So.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Oh, I don't even want to know what you was thinking now. So we're going to wrap it up here. Is there any last minute things you want to say?
Subscribe, and comment, please. Let us know what you're thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'd
happy 20th
20th episode.
Yay, thank you for all your subscriptions out there. We appreciate you listening to us.
Yeah, subscribe, and click the bell so you know when we, put out the notifications, and, work on yourself. That's what this all is about, is let's stop pointing the fingers and blaming and expecting everyone else. Just like in this topic for sex, you need to make me happy. You need to satisfy me. No, let's find happiness, joy, contentment, explosive creativity in and of ourselves. So until next time, everyone, be evolving people.